Good afternoon, everybody. And thanks again for the opportunity to continue to provide these updates at the EC4 meetings. I think it's absolutely critical to kind of continue to be able to present out the great progress and work that we've been undertaking across our state agencies in support of our resilient roadie strategy. A couple of highlights that I want to focus on today. But before I jump in, I just want to highlight one particular stat that we've been doing some quick calculations on. How much new money are we bringing into the state based on climate resilience and how we're moving things forward? And just since the strategy has been released just almost exactly a year ago, we crowded in about $13 million of brand new money for implementation for resilience projects. And that goes directly to municipalities for build projects in the ground. So $5 million from our Climate Resilience Fund, $5 million for the wastewater treatment facility and infrastructure improvements focused on resiliency from the green bond that passed in November, overwhelmingly around the state. $2 million allocated from the Rhode Infrastructure Bank for the Municipal Resilience Program, which I'll highlight in a minute. And then $650,000 from the Doors Through Charitable Foundation for our urban forest tree grant, which I'll also talk about. So that's brand new money coming to the state, and I think it just highlights the fact that we're now being more coordinated with our work around the state and driving action forward in the municipalities across Rhode Island. The strategy is moving along well. We've been sort of being really strategic and thoughtful about how we focus our efforts on particular actions inside of the strategy. No surprise to anyone here, a major focus of our work is how we work better with municipalities to drive those priority projects forward. So the Municipal Resilience Program that I have talked about in prior meetings, and I know that Jeff Deal talked about at the last meeting, has just officially kicked off with Westerly, South Kingstown, Portsmouth, and then a combo application between Warren and Barrington. They're going to be going as a joint application. So those four were the first in our 2019 cohort. The first Community Resilience Building Workshop, which is the workshop portion of our Municipal Resilience Program, is going to be this Wednesday in South Kingstown. And then we're going to quickly follow that up in July with our second workshop, which is going to be in Portsmouth. And then we're going to do about one a month until the beginning of September with the other two participants. So really excited to kick that off again. Those workshops are being led by the Nature Conservancy. And this is a really tight partnership between the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, the Resilient Roadie team, and the Nature Conservancy. So really excited about how that work is moving forward. The main goal of that whole program is to identify which projects, plans, and policies we can push forward at the local level to better prepare municipalities for a changing climate. The action grants in this first cohort for 2019, those four applicants, we have allocated at a minimum of $1 million in action grants for those participating municipalities to implement a handful of eligible projects, so shovels in the ground, capital improvement projects that come out of those workshops. So really excited about that. We're going to try to get that money out the door this calendar year. So the RFP for this first cohort is going to go out probably September-ish timeline, and then awards allocated before the end of the year, so we can do this again in 2020 and show that this is just a resounding success that we can scale up to all 39 in the near future. The fall RFP, I think, is really important because it aligns with other funding opportunities. We're working really hard on trying to come up with the rules and regs in the RFP for the Climate Resilience Fund. Again, that came out of the green bond that passed this past November. $5 million for climate resilience projects. That's going to go out this fall as well. So again, we're trying to align identification of projects with available funding streams that are coming up at the state level so we can match projects and funding together and be able to drive investment. The other really cool initiative that's happening, especially at CRMC, is the Shoreline Adaptation Inventory and Design Program being led by Caitlin Chafee at CRMC. I want to highlight this because, again, it's another way of being really thoughtful and strategic about identifying shovel-ready projects. That so when funding comes available, we have a project for you, right? And so that's what we're trying to do, is be thoughtful about projects and then funding. And I think the CRMC work that Caitlin Chafee is leading is doing a really good job of identifying those kind of nature-based solution and coastal adaptation projects that could meet future funding, state and federal funding. And that's going to align the timeline as well as the goals of our Resilient Roadie work. And that was funded by the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. And then finally, the Urban Forest Grant that I've talked about at previous EC4 meetings, funded by the Doors Through Charitable Foundation. We've now named the initiative, because every initiative needs a name better than like that urban forestry stuff. tree equity for climate and health. Again, this is a great partnership between the Resilient Rhode team, DEM, and others, and we are in the process right now of hiring a full-time project manager, which will be located at DEM. It's going to be an American Forest employee to really manage the whole process and program over the next 2 years. We're in the active process of scoping that work right now. We're cataloging all of the necessary data, so working with some vendors, working with other data opportunities from other academic institutions, so we get really best-in-class data so we can do this canopy cover assessment statewide. And again, the whole goal there is to how can trees in urban areas be an adaptation and mitigation player, so playing offense and defense. And I think we all can get behind the fact that trees in urban areas do a lot of work. And the work will be data-driven and will be an opportunity to show how really trees can do more than one thing at a time within our urban areas around the state. So really excited about how this is going to be a real catalyst for mitigation and adaptation work. I look forward to providing an update at the future EC4 meetings will really get moving. But right now we're scoping and making really good progress.
Shaun, I have a question and a comment.
Please.
I'll start with a comment. I think that co-benefits issue is really important. It's something we discussed last week with the governor when we were talking about all the different strategies, because a lot of times they're not being captured. So everyone's focused on a greenhouse gas goal, but they're not focused on the benefits of what we're not doing, or they're not focused on the co-benefits. I think with urban trees is a great example that you just mentioned, but in general, we need to be taking into account the co-benefits of the different policies that we're pursuing, and that doesn't happen sometimes. Secondly, I just wondered, or I want to recommend, are we going to have some big exciting goal, like plant X million trees, something that people can...
Yes, so that's in the process of our scoping right now, is to identify the goal. This started, and you mentioned earlier, Director Coit, when this came out of the U.S. Climate Alliance Learning Lab last summer. One of the things we identified was, can we have a statewide urban tree planting goal? And we're evaluating, is that the right approach to have the most benefit in our communities? And so right now we're going through all the different options. Is it tree equity score? Is it number of trees planted? And so that's one of the things we're evaluating with American Forest. But we're hoping to have a major goal that we can all stand behind and we're charging forward with.
I want to say keep it simple.
Yes. The other thing I want to mention too is the collaboration with the Department of Health on this work as well. And so we're working very closely with the Department of Health on really leading with public health. Not only just the adaptation mitigation, but also leading with the equity and public health opportunities, and looking at piloting some neighborhood scale intervention and working with the health equity zones, which I think is a good example of leveraging great work that's already happening, bringing in new funding and resources to be able to look at things in maybe a new way or a new climate lens.